welcome to Mindmine Mondays, our special conversation series with eminent thought leaders on innovative ideas and insights that will shape our future. Today, our focus is on the emerging medical frontiers of surgery, cell engineering, and biologics. And we're going to be shortly joined by some of US's top doctors. They're, in fact, some of the most accomplished doctors in the world. Emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, robotics, data analytics, etc., are really transforming the way medical care is administered to patients and patient outcomes. So our expert panel of doctors today will be throwing light on what the future holds for us as far as medical care is concerned. And of course, like always, Mindmine Mondays is a show that has been curated by the Mindmine Institute, an independent think tank set up by Hero Enterprise. So without further ado, let me welcome my first guest on the show, Sunil Munjal, Chairman of Hero Enterprise. Most of us, of course, know him as an auto sector veteran, but he's also very, very deeply interested in healthcare. And for the purpose of this session, he's going to be my co-moderator. Welcome to the show, Mr. Munjal. Always a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Mridu. And welcome, folks, to another session of Mindmine Mondays. We've been so consumed by the current situation that's overtaken the world, the pandemic of the COVID-19, that sometimes we tend to forget we have to get over this. We have to go beyond this, that healthcare is an ongoing need for many, many more issues for all of humanity. The changes that are taking place right now in technology, in science, in manufacturing, also bring to bear themselves on health sciences and healthcare. So it will be interesting to listen to the top experts in the world with us today. And by the way, it is an absolutely outstanding panel that we have to talk to us, not just what's going on today, because they are already at the cutting edge in their chosen fields, but where do they expect in the next 10 years or so, where do they expect their individual sciences will be? Where do they expect we will move as a community, as people, from just care to preventive care, to predictive care, to customized care, to connected care? There are just so many initiatives on right now, and they are driven by technology, driven by software, driven by manufacturing 4.0, and all of the inputs which are being brought in to the pharma industry and to the health itself for humanity to serve human beings better. Our ability to gather more data has become dramatically better than it was earlier. So to help us through this conversation, we have four experts with us. Dr. Barham K. Dayyeh is the Director of Advanced Endoscopy at Mayo Clinic in the US. Dr. William A. Faubion, Chair of Gastroenterology Research at Mayo Clinic. Dr. Inderbir S. Gill, Chairman of Urology at USC, the Keck Medical School at USC, California. Dr. Mohamad Bydon, Principal Investigator of Neuro-Informatics Laboratory at Mayo Clinic. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for helping us to understand in lay terms what is this rapid change that is taking place and what it will mean for each one of us.
Right. Welcome, gentlemen. Doctors, thank you very much for taking out time and being with us here today. This early morning for you, early Monday morning for all of you. So thanks very much for joining us. Dr. Gill, if I may begin with you, you're a very well-known robotic and laparoscopic surgeon, one of the most accomplished in the world, if I may say so. I know that many Hollywood celebrities, including the likes of Steven Spielberg, endorse your skills very much. So give us a peep into the future of robotic surgery. What are the new challenges, new frontiers that you and your fraternity are trying to conquer at this point in time, and what will it mean for patient care?
So major abdominal surgery requires a big cut to get inside the abdomen or the thorax and to do surgery. For a century, this has been the paradigm. We have had to hurt in order to heal. We have to make a big incision, big cut in order to get in and do what we need to do. Robotics is changing that, and we are now able to do major intra-abdominal, even intrathoracic surgery without making the big cut. So I think that is the major paradigm shift, where we don't have to hurt to heal as much. And we are, like anything else, you have to start step by step. So initially it was simpler procedures. Now it is complex procedures. And your question about where we are today, we are now at the point where we have created a good body of data, a good body of evidence that in the past 20 years, so it is now 2 decades since robotics came into being. Right. And now we have a good body of evidence, objective data that show that in most things, we are at least as good as open surgery, and in many better. This is the essential platform that we need in order to be able to now build to the next level, which we can talk about.
Right. And Dr. Bydon, if I can come to you, as an accomplished neurosurgeon, you've, I'm sure, seen several transformations over the last few years. 2 years ago, you launched one of the largest robotic spine programs in the US. Give us a sense of what you're trying to achieve with it, and what have you achieved so far? How challenging is minimally invasive surgery when it comes to the spine, really? And what are some of the most significant patient outcomes that you've seen through this program?
So thank you very much for having me today. And I just want to say, being at Mayo Clinic, I've been honored to be able to treat many patients from India, to have research collaborators in India, and to have students in my laboratory who are from India, including a brilliant young man from the All India Institute, whose name is Dr. Anshit Goyal, who's one of my lead fellows. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of your show and to speak to the good people of the world's largest democracy. First, as you stated, robotic spinal surgery is something that's been ongoing, similar to what Dr. Gill was saying on the urologic side. Spinal surgery historically involved very large incisions. The back would be cut open in a significant way, and those surgeries required extensive recuperation, in some cases 6 months to a year. With the robotic program that we've started, which we started at all of our sites in the US and hope to expand it outside the US, we're able to perform surgeries that previously took 5 or 6 hours in 90 minutes. We're able to perform them with smaller incisions. And I would say, when we first launched the robotic program, we thought we were purchasing a robotic arm. In fact, we were purchasing a software platform. It's almost like what Tesla has done for vehicles by bringing software into the vehicle. And now when you buy new cars, you're amazed at how much software is in them. You're almost purchasing a computer with a car attached to it. And that's in fact what we got with our surgeries when we brought software in. You can plan the surgeries rather than seeing what happens during surgery. You can now plan them end to end on the software and then accomplish that plan during surgery.
Right, wow, great. We're going to deep dive into some more of those things that you just shared, but let me also bring in Dr. Barham. You have great experience in advanced endoscopy. Please tell us what you're able to achieve now with these tiny little devices, like a small camera that goes into our bodies, and how has the approach to complex diseases really changed because of the emergence of these new devices? And when we talk of the future of surgery, say over the next decade or so, will most of these be done using natural orifices, and will they be minimally invasive?
Thank you, Madhu. It's an excellent question. And again, it's an honor to be with this esteemed panel to discuss the future of medicine and surgery. Dr. Gill started with saying we used to hurt in order to heal. Then now we're hurting less in order to heal. And the future is not to hurt at all in order to heal. And that could be achieved through using the natural orifice of the body in order to perform complex interventions. The other buzzword here is anatomy preserving. So now with this small camera mounted on a long tube, we could treat complex cancer. We could treat ubiquitous or very prevalent disease like metabolic syndrome and diabetes and fatty liver disease and obesity. and we could treat diseases that used to require a very invasive surgical approach through the mouth or through the rectum of the patient. So the future is gonna be that most of this surgery is gonna migrate from an open platform with big incisions to smaller keyhole incisions like laparoscopic or robotic surgery, to the future being natural orifice using robotic assistance as well to achieve complex intervention in anatomy preserving and non-invasive fashion.
Right. And Dr. Faubion, you've been studying immune functions of the intestines. You're engaged in cell engineering as well. Would you say we are at an inflection point where advances in cell biology and genetic engineering will really change the way we think about medicine? And what are some of the top trends that you're observing in that direction?
Thanks very much. I agree. I mean, if we've talked about hurting to heal, the very smallest surgeon could be a lymphocyte that could treat a cancer without ever having to open the body at all. And so certainly we're at a new frontier in cell engineering. And when we talk about cell engineering, I think at a minimum, what we're trying to do is re-engineer a living cell in order to perform a function that we want it to have or not want it to have. And the most obvious example right now that the viewership would be aware of is the CAR T cell field, which is re-engineering a lymphocyte in order to treat a cancer. But that cell engineering and re-engineering of cells is cutting across a wide variety of cellular platforms, some of which treat inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis or inflammatory bowel disease, which is my expertise, and others treat complications of certain diseases like graft versus host disease. So I do believe that we are just beginning a new frontier of engineering in a microscopic way cells to perform functions, and we can talk a lot more about that.
Right.
So but let me ask you this. Would I be a good candidate for myself to provide cells, or should they come from a neutral source, a third party? How does it work best?
Fantastic question. It depends on the indication. And a perfect example of that. So if I use my own tissue to treat a disease that I have, that's called autologous therapy, auto. If I use Dr. Abu Dayyeh's tissue to treat my disease, that's called allo, somebody else's tissue. There are complications, advantages, and disadvantages to both. The CAR T cell field is right now primarily auto because these are lymphocytes that are designed to treat an individual patient's malignancy. Some of that comes then with the manufacturing complications and the expense with the condition. So as you adequately state, it would be ideal if I could take a frozen off-the-shelf therapy and treat a patient as far as manufacturing and cost goes. And there are some cellular therapies that are available for that. One example of that is something your viewership may have heard of called MSC, or mesenchymal stromal cell, mesenchymal stem cell therapy. Dr. Bydon has some examples where he's been using that in neurosurgery. There's a variety of programs now running where these cells can be used in an allogeneic fashion, meaning from one person to another. And the reason people can do that is because the cells themselves don't induce a large amount of an immune response against the cell, which is very different than other types of cells. So there's possibilities for both, and there's applications for both. And there's risks and benefits and advantages and disadvantages to both. And if the viewership is interested, we can talk more about that too.
As we sort of round up our thoughts, I want to ask each one of you, what is that big frontier that you are looking to conquer in the next 10 years or so? You spoke a little bit, Dr. Bydon, just now about longevity. Also add to that quality of life, add to that, addressing healthcare inequalities. So what is it that all of you are looking forward to, conquering over the next 10 years or so? And maybe if we can start with Dr. Faubion.
That thank you. So I suppose what I'm most excited about in 10 years is disease modeling, and that really encompasses many of the things we've been talking about: multidisciplinary integration, some of the relevant space in which for us to perform, in Dr. Gill's presentation, a complex procedure prior to actually doing it on the patient. So there's virtual reality. There's a combination between data analytics from a patient's medical record to precision therapy with the patient's genome, epigenome, and transcriptome, and adequately model that disease as if it's an avatar in order to define the best therapy, be that a cellular, biologic, or surgical therapy, before that patient ever arrives to see me. So I would love to have cohorts or collections, if you will. I'm an inflammatory bowel disease doctor, so I'll use that because I understand this. I would love to have right now in my laboratory 30 or 40 relevant human models of Crohn's disease with all of the appropriate coordinating tissues, the epithelium, the lymphatic system, the vascular system, the immune system, in order for me to really understand, model, and treat effectively these individual patients, be that with their own cells, others, their own therapy, or others. And there are a lot of opportunities for integration there, but that's something I think is achievable in 10 years between manufacturing, matrix engineers, and the types of biological platforms that we have. I think that's achievable. I wouldn't even talk about the microbiome. So that's another organ system I would like to see involved in that.
And just an add-on to this question for all of you, are there any of you in the US or other places who are a little bit ahead of the others? So is it Johns Hopkins or Mayo or Cleveland or USC, Columbia? Who is it that seems to be a little bit ahead in this race? Because it is something that most healthcare professionals now desire to get to.
I would say, I'll be very political. I would say that the most successful teams are going to be the teams that have a culture that integrates well across all specialties and is investing rapidly in data science and data. You can use the internet and look those up, but I would say that teams that are investing heavily and cultures that integrate well across specialties, those are going to be the most successful teams.
That was a question well avoided.
Very smartly, Doctor. So, Dr. Gill, you wanted to make a point. We are getting timed out on this episode, so I'm going to ask a quick wrap-up comments. Yes, Dr. Gill, go ahead.
No, it's not just a question well avoided. I mean, it's an unanswerable question because it is not possible to say this particular institution is the go-to place for medicine. It is the individual components of it that what we ought to be talking about. What's good for this? What's good for that? But from the initial question that you asked, Sunil, about what would I want to be seeing in 10 years as a surgeon, I would like to see a decrease in the amount of usage of surgery as we know it. We ought to be able to really ablate cancers, because I do cancer surgery mostly, ablate cancers in a less invasive manner, and that would require a multidisciplinary approach where we are working with the cell biology folks, the radiology colleagues, etc., etc. Also, I would say that artificial intelligence is something that is really coming down the pike now pretty quickly. And for example, one of our current initiatives is to figure out how we can use AI to do automated readouts of MRIs for prostate cancer, or even histology for diagnosing histologic diagnosis, etc. Yeah, I mean, the 10-year story is hopefully surgery will be completely different from what we see.
Right, absolutely. And Dr. Barham?
Yeah, so
10-year goal for you?
So in 10 years, what I'm hoping is along the same lines of my colleagues, at least from my field, is this, again, going back to this concept of anatomy preserving surgery through natural orifice. We just got our first robot at Mayo Clinic to test it, which is an endoluminal robot. But right now, the big problem is we could get really good access to remove cancers and stuff like that. But right now, it's like we're trying to eat a steak with a knife, and we need the fork. And the robot is getting us the fork and the knife in order to effectively treat this from inside rather from outside. So, but that's still a master-slave concept. That means I'm asking the robot to do a function that I am dictating as a physician. It's not a partnership between machine and human. And we know from the field of chess, at least, that when you put machine with human, they could beat any human. So the future is using the robot and digital platform in order to have the robot drive and tell you this is the cancer and this is the margin that you need to remove, with confidence and having the tools to do it together. I think that's where I would like to see in the future, and that's where we're heading anyway.
Right. What to you, Dr. Bydon? 10-year goal for you?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would echo Dr. Faubion's comments that the most successful institutions will be the ones who best integrate across multidisciplinary, complex lines. In terms of the future, medicine today runs on a population basis, meaning I know that if I give 1 million people aspirin, the response will be such, therefore aspirin can be prescribed for this disease. And while that may work when you look at 1 million people, or in India's case, 1.3 billion people, it doesn't work so well when you go down to that individual patient level. That's going to change over the next 10 years. I'll give you a small example. We were fortunate to be able to invest a significant sum to create a system where when I, as a surgeon, can sit with a patient, I can now show them, based on their age, their gender, whether they're a smoker or not, their BMI, what surgery they're having, who their surgeon is, what campus they're having it at, their exact risk of 30-day complications. I can tell them, here's your, and I'm not saying 5 to 10%, I can tell them your risk is 8.6% for your case for this surgery here. We haven't really been there before. We haven't been able to do that before. And this is a system that we have that builds upon itself and gets better. And in fact, changes month by month. If we have a month of great outcomes, that risk will go down. If we have a month of unfavorable outcomes, that risk will go up. And those are things that we're just on the cutting edge of today, but you will see that happening in a more robust way and across the board within the next 10 years, much more individualized medicine, targeted risks, and targeted interventions that are individualized to that specific patient.
What an intellectually stimulating conversation. So truly, thank you. And this is what the Mindmine Institute is all about, is bringing ideas and issues in a manner to be discussed and debated that actually matters. So
thank you, Mr.
Really,
Munjal,
truly thank you.
curating this session exclusively on CNN 18 and, of course, Mindmine Institute's social media platforms. And thank you very much, all you doctors, learned experts joining us early this morning from the US. Wish you a good day ahead. Thanks very much. That's a wrap of this special conversation of Mindmine Mondays. We'll, of course, be back next time. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.